Okay, so welcome everyone. Lovely to see you, to be with you. So it's always now. The nowness of now is presence, being. The nowness of now is not the current thought or the current perception. The nowness of now is invisible to the eye, invisible to the senses, that which is and cannot not be. The reality of your experience is this invisible nowness, beingness, awareness, which is not in time. And therefore, there is no prior to nowness. And there is no subsequent to nowness. Being which is also isness. Is infinite, borderless. Not a movement in time, not a movement on the screen. When you refer to that which you perceive, you are also referring to the reality of the perception. The reality of the perception is hidden. In that it does not appear separate from its perception. So being, meaning I, is hidden from the senses. Hidden from the mind. Hidden from thought. And yet the mind is its reflection. Sensations, feelings. They are the imprint, the expression of the absolute. Like the reflection of the sunlight on the surface of the pond, the glittering waves. They are an expression of the sunlight. The sun is hidden in the reflection. And yet the reflection is not possible without the sunlight. In fact, the reflection of the sunlight is made out of the sunlight. consciousness being the reality, that which is and cannot not be, is aware. They're not two. There is no reality beyond the reality of consciousness. Whatever reality that one can imagine, which is beyond the reality of consciousness, is consciousness itself. And you, meaning I, is this consciousness. One could say that prior to the reflection of the sunlight on the surface of the pond, there is the sun as a way of speaking. In fact, there is no such thing as prior. But as a way of speaking, one could say that the source is the sunlight, and the manifestation is the reflection on the surface of the pond. So one could say that perceptions, sensations, mentations, they are the reflections on the surface of the pond, the reflections of consciousness, of the sun. But the sun is not separate from its reflections. The reflections are not separate from the sun. Similarly, the world, body, mind, perceptions are not separate from consciousness, I, consciousness. And in this non-dual reality, there is no reality other than that, the reality of time. Does not exist outside of the concept. the concept and the sensory aspect. Which we refer to as feeling, the feeling of time. In the non-dual understanding, it's one realm. It has no actual layers. Conceptually, yes. As many layers, as many realms as we care to conceptualize. But experientially, there are no layers to reality. The mind may classify and dissect and categorize files and folders. But they are conceptual. Here and there is conceptual. Now and later is conceptual. When you go directly to the reality of your experience, you only find being. Awareness, consciousness. There is no separate entity anywhere to attain anything. It's a myth. God hasn't created separate forms and scattered them in his kingdom. It would be so cruel. There is no mountain to surmount. In order to realize the freedom that you are. Because there is no separate entity. That needs to overcome ignorance. So in this moment, the understanding that there is no one, no separate self, no one to hold on, to grasp anything. It is pure folly for an imaginary character to be battling an imaginary current, struggling not to drown. It is pure folly. So you don't need to imagine yourself as anything. Because whichever way you imagine yourself is a form of limitation. A reduction of your wholeness, of your totality. God did not short change you. It is out of your freedom that you play the game of poor me. What is this me that you You imagine yourself to be. And what for? Sooner or later, you have to drop it. It's a dead corpse. There's some storyline that we are so habituated to. We somehow are comfortable with, and at the same time we resent it. We want to be free of this me storyline, and yet somehow we maintain it. But sooner or later you lose interest in this unhappy charade. Okay, so if you have any questions, please make sure you unmute your mic and welcome turn on your video. Any questions? Hello, Holger.
Hello, Magdi. I don't have any question, but just thank you. It's so beautiful to relax in this clarity, in this yes, in this effortlessness. Just thank you for this. This is amazing.
It's always available.
Yeah. Yeah.
being not knowing, resting in the midst of activity, in the midst of there is a restfulness. It's there. It's not something that we do. It's the restfulness of being. Being is restful and active. The activity is not opposite to the restfulness. It's the restfulness itself, being active. Like a pianist, you know. They're not doing anything, but yet so such creativity, beauty. When we don't separate anything, don't separate ourselves. The self, meaning being, is non-dual. It's the manifest and being are not two. So your body is the body of being, is the universe. The universe and you and being are one. There isn't a line anywhere. It's actual demarcation that says, okay, on this side is something that's no. The functioning of the body, the mind, thoughts, sensations, perceptions, they're cosmic.
But during the day, there are different moods, there are different levels of energy. There is sometimes stress, sometimes...
Not in presence.
Yeah, yes.
Maybe there is a narrative and a commentary. It's creating comparisons and commentaries during the day. This, this. Yeah, it's a commentary. It's a playful, like a novelist, a writer sits in front of a blank screen and then starts to type, creaking sound in the distance. Is it the door that's opening? Or is it the rustling of the wind among the leaves?
Yeah.
I recollect playing in the yard with the chestnut, under the chestnut tree, It's a novelist. But in presence, you say, presence is creative, but nothing is actually happening to presence. It's presence that is happening as world, body, mind. So our narratives about ourselves, that's what they are, right? Our narratives about the world, our mind movement. It's okay. But that's what they are. Gee, he looked at me as if he was mad while I was smiling at him. It's a play of mirrors, crystals, light bouncing against various crystals. And as it bounces, it creates a little ding, ding, and all these things together, ding, 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 makes a thought, as a playing with it. But believing that there is something real happening outside of being, outside of universal being, that there is something happening outside, beyond being. It's just a narrative. It's a false narrative because it's only being. It's not possible to experience something else than being. What would it be? Non-being. Anything else than being would be non-being. It's not possible. Experience is always being. Always being. Of course, these are words I'm using, but they're referring to something else. They're not just sound waves. That sound waves are referring.
Hi, Magdi.
Hello.
It's Mark.
Mark. Hello, Mark. Oh, Holger, are you?
I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay.
But
yes.
You might be done.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Hello, Mark.
Hi. I'm wondering if you see any distinction between regarding words. We're just at the words level, but we have the word being, we have the word awareness, and we have God. Do you see any distinction in where those three words point to?
No.
You don't know? Okay, that's all. That's what I wanted to know. I do not either. So I was that's hopeful.
In religious lingo, we speak of God.
Yes.
Universal being. We speak of universal being or beingness or reality in non-duality. We say one being or one reality. Of course, meaning one, meaning universal. And awareness, there is no being without awareness. Being means I am, means amness. Amness implies implicit within amness is knowing, because it's not possible for being to be without knowing. So being is knowing. Being knows that it is. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be being. What would being be without knowing that it is? So being and knowing Huh?
I understand.
Yes. Being and knowing, they are like two sides of a coin that has a zero thickness.
Okay. I find that I have a mixed group of friends, and some of my friends, have a kind of a knee-jerk aversion to hearing the G. Well, I'll call it the G word, God. Whereas if I say awareness or being or other things, which pretty much to me mean the same thing, then they can handle that a little better. They don't have such a reaction to it.
Yes.
So to me, they're all okay.
Yeah, that's good. Me too, as some of us have maybe some past trauma, from
Oh yeah.
religious, bringing. I don't know, but in a religious way of speaking, God, Yahweh, Allah, reference
many
Brahman,
names.
the absolute, the absolute. It's okay. It's a word,
Right. Okay. That's what I wanted. Just clearing that.
Yeah, you look like you are in a lovely place. Where are you at right now?
Yeah, I'm guilty of being in another beautiful place.
Yes.
This area that I'm in is called the Len Hardy dispersed camping area, and it's above a town called Buena Vista in Colorado. We're at 9,300 feet.
Wow.
Beautiful. And if I point the camera out, I don't know if you guys want to see, I'll just give you a second of.
Oh, yes, that would be great.
I'm I don't know if it'll really show you. I don't know if this is going to come out, but
yes.
It's we're looking for many miles if we look out that direction.
Yeah, I can see that. Beautiful. It's such a charged sky too, huh?
Yeah, this been raining a lot here this year. And most summer it's been raining up here, and too much, Yes. I could get into my complaint mode if I wanted to about that, but it's just creating a lot of beautiful skies.
Yes, that's beautiful. I love the skies are really beautiful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great, Marco. Beautiful.
It feels like a blessing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Try to I might contrast with the you might be able to help me with this, but it's not really. Let's see. So if I think about my past, like many years ago, I'm out of breath just from that little walk from up here. Anyway, it was I see a past that was kind of miserable compared to what things have been like now. There was a lot of, and so I guess that's looking at things in terms of time.
But it's moving in the right direction, moving in the
direction.
More freedom. Yeah.
Yes, I could be curious about, some of my curiosity now is, well, somehow accidentally or from God's grace, let's say, things have moved in what I'll call a right direction.
Yes.
Things are happier for me, in a lot of ways than they were. And, I think seems like somehow that's related to, we could go off the edge into causality and everything now. I don't know if we want to do that, but, it somehow seems like it's related to more recent years of being, having a more connection and more interest with non-duality. And
absolutely. As we become more and more free from the illusion of separation, as our understanding sort of deepens and settles, in our being, and it affects our life, our actions, our perceptions, how we think, how we live, the decisions we make. So yes, life, and also the mind, the world, the body, and the mind become happier, more freedom, more joy, more celebration, more contemplation. Sure, that is an indication of being moving in the right direction.
It almost seems reflective, or like as I kept trying to remember this, how it was put in some Buddhist teachings a while back, was something along the lines of, as if, I got to use the word enlightenment, but if, let's say, if a being has some degree of enlightenment, that it's actually the world, their world becomes enlightened with them at the same time.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to struggling with the language there, but
no, that's a good way of saying it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because there isn't a world outside of being. So as being starts to sort of diffuse in the entire world, it's no longer separate. When being is not separate from the world, then being permeates the entire world. It permeates your body. Also, is permeated with being, and being means peace, happiness, freedom, joy, causeless peace and happiness. So, yes, that was the right way of saying it. That as you become enlightened, your world, your body, and your mind are enlightened. It's okay to say
yes,
it. As long as we understand the words we're using. Who cares?
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes we're trying to be too politically correct with the language, you know.
Oh yeah. Yes, I appreciate that. Okay. Well, I'm pretty good today. I'm having a good day.
Great.
Even better day now that I've had a little satsang with you all.
Okay, so. Beautiful, great. Nice to see you, and nice to enjoy the view with you and spend this time together with you.
Thank you, Magdi.
Okay, Mark. Okay. Any questions?
Magdi.
Hello, Nathan. Yes.
Thank you for such a wonderful meditation. As Holger was saying at the beginning, there was a sense of amazing wholeness and transparency. And I had this kind of understanding about what I perceive sometimes as distractions. I think I spoke about it before. And I find that as this understanding is flourishing, the distractions are not distractions. They are what you said about reflections, the reflection of my wholeness, of a totality in this silence, in this presence. And they're not seen as something else. They're just oneness of what you call the manifest and that which perceive the manifest. They're not separate. So there's no disturbance because it's all me. It's all I. And there is this joy that comes with this, freedom and joy. And it's expressed so beautifully in the meditation today. And I'm really, really grateful for this. Because it's kind of pacifying as well. It's joining things. As you said, I don't put borders anymore. Everything is coming together. There's this togetherness of everything.
Yes.
And with this, there's amazing sense of freedom and love and everything, all of that.
Yes.
And gratitude.
Yes, very nice. You know, I mean, sometimes there may be practical situations where you have to focus on something. Maybe you're doing some intervention with one of the pets that you're working with, and there may be a distraction. In a practical sense, there is maybe some crashing sound in the room next door. It may, but of course, that's not what we're talking about. That's very easy to sort of deal with. But in terms of what you are sharing, which is really beautiful, in that because there is no separate entity that exists with its own conditions. There isn't such a thing. Because if there was a separate entity with its own conditions, then the world has to behave in a certain way to fit the conditions of this imaginary person, imaginary self. But of course, as you are sharing, when our experience is no longer some separate self to whom the world must behave or respond in a certain way, then there is no one to be distracted and no distractions. Yes, absolutely. So then our life becomes a life of insight, creativity, practical activity, contemplative activity, celebratory activity. It's all happy, free, joyful. Playful.
Yes, thank you, Magdi. And yes, even in difficult moments and harsh moments, sometimes at work, moments of grief and sharing, there is this peace with it, even in difficulties. There's no another situation. It's all one reality in which everything is an expression. So it's, as you say, there's a permeation of activity with something really divine and profound.
Yeah, there is a sweetness to grief.
A sweetness, yes. And gratitude. And
yes,
I kind of feel my clients and they feel me, and there's this, in the grief, there is kind of acceptance, deep togetherness.
Mm-hmm. Love.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
There's no barriers at all.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Any questions? Okay.
Yes, one little thing. Conceptualizing and experience, and experiencing and conceptualizing. So the conceptualizing is the aspect that creates the suffering, the separation.
No, conceptualizing is not suffering or ignorance. Ignorance is an unhappiness or suffering, whatever words you use, refers to the belief that I, consciousness, is separate, personal, limited, depend on the body-mind, is a result of the body-mind, depends on the world. Conceptualization is an aspect of the human mind, maybe other minds too, I don't know, of creating metaphors or caricatures or creating a language of relationships within the totality. But ignorance would be believing that the concept tree or the concept pineapple refers to a reality, physical reality, that is apart as a reality from the oak tree. Say the belief in physicality, in the physical reality, which is made out of bits, parts, and pieces. So you could use the concept pineapple, pear, tree, maple, woman, man, etc., with the understanding that it's one reality. The reality is one. That reality is the reality of consciousness, awareness, being, whatever. And that this reality is one reality, meaning is not limited, is not separate from other realities or limited in any way, because it's one reality. So not to vilify the conceptual realm, but to make that subtle distinction between believing in a conceptual reality.
Oh, yes.
You see?
But in direct experience, there is no suffering.
No.
Because there is no separate me. There is no...
Absolutely. Direct experience, meaning not in time. There is no time in direct experience. Using the term direct experience, there is no time. So given there is no time, there is no space, and there are no objects. Objects exist in time and space. And there isn't a me that is existing in time and space. There is just being. So in direct experience is the experience of being or reality. Fernando, I see Fernando. I saw you waving your hand, Fernando. I'm not sure if Fernando wanted to say something, but yes. So, yes, in experientially, there is no duality. Experientially is consciousness, just being, awareness. But when we say experientially, there isn't a separate entity. So this is just awareness. So yeah, if you go to your experience right now, then it's just the reality of consciousness or reality of awareness.
So the conceptualizing makes things theoretic. And it's either practical or it creates suffering because it creates the separate self.
The concept of a car or the concept of a tree or the concept of pineapple, how does that create suffering?
No, it doesn't. It's practical.
Yes, it's practical.
It's practical.
But how does a concept create suffering?
By me believing in it, by identifying with it.
Yes, any identification with any form, concept or perception, any sort of identification is a reduction of your freedom.
Yeah.
It is absolutely not necessary to identify, because the body-mind has a built-in intelligence to recognize, okay, well, this is my house, this is my car. I make a right here, I make a left here. I say hello to this person, smile, I smile, whatever. The body-mind already is perfectly wired and is constantly learning via the adaptation process how to operate and survive in the world of events, in the world of people, in the world of situations, you see. It doesn't need identification. Identification is identification of consciousness with something. The fact that this body-mind owns this car doesn't mean that consciousness owns a car. Consciousness is not in the ownership of it. You have to understand consciousness. When we talk about consciousness, we're not talking about a phenomena. We're not talking about a concept. We're talking about the reality that is, a reality that is and that knows it is and perceives in this moment and every moment. It's non-phenomenal. Yes. So when we say I, we're referring to that. We're referring to that transparency, to that reality, to consciousness. Consciousness doesn't need to identify. Whenever it does, with anything, it identifies with the husband, with the wife, with the car, with the child, whatever it identifies with, then yes, it is ignorance.
Thank you. Amazing.
Don't be troubled too much with the conceptual aspect of the mind. Allow the mind to conceptualize, not a problem. Give it its freedom to conceptualize. Actually appreciate, you can appreciate the conceptual creativity and capacity on the various nuances of the conceptual aspect of the mind. That's okay. but be more watchful of the identification. Yes. Yeah. And attributing reality to anything, and attributing reality to anything, whether it's a concept, whether it's a tree, whether it's a mountain, or whether it's your wife, kids, is an erroneous attribution.
Yeah. Yes.
Reality should only be attributed to reality itself.
Yes.
No, nowhere else. A reality in your experience, you know it because there is something rather than nothing. And that something rather than nothing is not your thoughts or your perceptions or your sensations, which are constantly appearing and dissolving. That something rather than nothing is consciousness, is the invisible reality, is the reality which perceives that which is and knows it is. I know that from the mind perspective, it's challenging because the mind thinks of reality in an objective sense. It objectifies. But the mind is just an appearance within that reality. The mind is just a form of reality. It's a reality taking on the form of a perception, of a thought, of a sensation. Although it takes on the form of hearing, it is invisible. It is not made out of sound waves.
Yeah.
Reality is not made out of sound waves, vibrations.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Thank you all. Beautiful. Mark, good to see you, and Holger, Nathan, Richard, hi Richard, and Ron, hi Ron, George, Frank, hi Frank, and hello Tan, John, and my sweetheart Tara. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Magdi.
Okay, see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.